Bible reading I'd like to base my message on today is the story of Jesus cleansing the lepers. It's found in Luke chapter 17. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When Jesus saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up, go on your way. Your faith has made you well." Amen. Nearly 3 decades ago, a psychologist named Martin Seligman noticed something when he was doing some research into one of his patients' conditions. Almost every paper or article that he read on the human psyche dealt with negative emotions and experiences and how they affect how we think and act. Things like depression or anxiety or childhood trauma. And that's understandable because these kind of things take a huge toll on our mental health. But it left him with the feeling that we seem to be only defined as people by the not-so-great things that happen to us. But as a practicing psychologist for years, he recognized that people are shaped not only by difficult and traumatic things, but also by good and positive emotions and experiences. And maybe instead of always focusing on the things that negatively impact on human mental health, something should be said about the things that affect us in a positive way. And so he founded a new discipline of psychology that he called positive psychology. And instead of researching trauma or anxiety or depression, he set about studying the effects on the brain of optimism, compassion, forgiveness, and joy. His thoughts at the time were considered almost revolutionary, as no one had done any serious study into how the brain is shaped and changed by positive emotions and experiences. And guess what he discovered? Of all the positive emotions, guess which one he believed had the most positive effect on human life? Gratitude. Gratitude, more than anything else, he believed, shapes us in positive ways. His extensive study and experimentation has concluded that developing a consistent, ongoing attitude of gratitude leads to any or all of the following: heightened energy levels, increased self-esteem, strengthened immune system, improved academic and emotional intelligence, decreased stress, and a heightened spirituality, meaning a willingness to see the bigger picture in life. His conclusion is that people who develop in their lives an attitude of gratitude have a much greater chance of living a happier, healthier, more well-rounded and productive life. It's funny, because what was the first thing your parents ever taught you? They taught you to say thank you. That may have been the best advice that your parents ever gave to you. And if your parents are still living, you should call them and say, "Thank you for teaching me how to say thank you." You know, I was thinking about this, and although Martin Seligman's conclusion may be something new in the area of psychology, there's nothing new about the power of gratitude. The great spiritual and religious movements throughout history have told us the same thing for generations, that gratitude is an important and powerful way of being in relationship with each other and with God. Our own Christian scriptures say, "Do all things with a grateful heart." But it goes so much beyond that. In the Jewish tradition, there's a beautiful prayer that is meant to be said the moment you awaken. "I thank you, living God, for you have restored my life to me this day." In Judaism, simply getting up in the morning is a reason to express gratitude. Ramadan, in the Muslim tradition, is an entire season devoted to saying thank you. Buddhism speaks of gratitude as part of its economy of gifts. And prayers are regularly offered for thanks, and not just for good things, even for suffering and challenges, for they lead to the appreciation of good things. And it goes even further back than that. Archaeologists have found ruins of ancient Etruscan temples. The Etruscans were a very old civilization dating back to the 6th century BC, living in the area that is today modern Italy. Archaeologists have excavated their old temples and found little terracotta figures of heads and feet and fingers and ears. The belief was that if you had a physical ailment and then you were healed from that ailment, you made a small model of that part of your body that was healed, and you would offer it to the gods as a symbol of your gratitude. As a human species, we've always known how powerful this quality can be. Whether you are an Etruscan priest sitting on the floor of a temple, encouraging a follower to make a model of his healed big toe, or a modern-day psychologist sitting in an air-conditioned office, encouraging someone to keep a gratitude journal, we know that gratitude is good medicine for the heart, the mind, and the soul. And hopefully we can find opportunities every day to express that gratitude. A police officer was waiting alongside of a highway, waiting to catch speeding drivers. There weren't many violators on that day, but then the state police officer, it's an American story, the state police officer sees an old car puttering along at 22 miles per hour. He thinks to himself, well, this driver is just as dangerous on the road as a speeder. So he turns on his lights and he pulls the driver over. Approaching the car, he notices that there are 5 elderly ladies in the car, 2 in the front seat and 3 in the back, wide-eyed and as white as ghosts. The driver, obviously confused, says to the police officer, "Officer, I don't understand. I was doing exactly the speed limit. What seems to be the problem?" "Ma'am," the officer replies, "you weren't speeding, but you should know that driving slower than the speed limit can also be a danger to other drivers." "Slower than the speed limit?" she said. "No, sir, I was doing the speed limit exactly. 22 miles an hour. State police officer, trying to contain a chuckle, explains to her that 22 was the route number, not the speed limit. A bit embarrassed, the woman grinned and thanked the officer for pointing out her error, and then expressed gratitude again when the officer let her go with just a warning. Then the officer said, "Before I let you go, ma'am, I have to ask, is everyone in the car okay? These women seemed awfully shaken up, and they haven't uttered a single word this whole time." "Oh, they'll be all right in a minute, officer," she said. "We just got off Route 215. I don't know how much that joke has to do with gratitude, but it's a good joke, and laughter is good medicine for the soul, too. As the psychologist Seligman said, and countless religious traditions have, including our own, have taught us, gratitude is a powerful way of approaching life. But as we all know, it's one of those qualities that's so easy to embrace when things are going well. It can be a little trickier when things aren't going so well. Other than Easter, Thanksgiving is the first major holiday that we have celebrated under the umbrella of this pandemic. Whether or not it's affecting your Thanksgiving plans, it's affecting many people's. For some, regular family get-togethers have been put on hold, or giant family feasts have been scaled down to just a few family members getting together. Trips have been canceled. Well-hewn traditions have been disrupted, changed, or abandoned. Our politicians are pleading with us to sacrifice Thanksgiving this year so that hopefully we can salvage Christmas. This will be the first Thanksgiving in over 20 years that my family hasn't all gathered up north at the cottage for a big celebration. We miss these things. It's hard to let them go. At first blush, we can be tempted to think, well, this is hardly a year to give thanks. But hold on a second, because the argument could also be made that this is, in fact, the easiest year to give thanks. We've all been through the ringer these past 7 months, and yet we're all still standing. If you are healthy, if your family and friends are healthy, if you've kept your job, if you have food, if you have lots of toilet paper, you have a reason to say thank you. Maybe you even feel more grateful for these things than you have in other years. We mustn't confuse a loss of ritual with a lack of gratitude. COVID-19 has simply changed the focus of the things that we give thanks for. And sometimes even difficult things such as COVID can actually bring blessings we weren't aware of. Difficult things can actually do that. I always love to tell the story, supposedly a true story in Enterprise, Alabama. In Enterprise, Alabama, there's a statue in the town square of a boll weevil. And a boll weevil is a pest. It's a tiny insect that can devour crops. In 1895, Enterprise was overrun with boll weevils, which destroyed its only source of income, cotton crops. The people of Enterprise faced hard times, starvation even, if they didn't do something. So they diversified. Instead of planting cotton, they planted coffee, and soon they became the coffee county of the southern United States. Their prosperity soared, and so they erected a statue to the boll weevil for forcing them to change directions. Let me give you a real-life example of that, but with COVID. I did a wedding last Saturday, or a couple of Saturdays ago, that I know I'll never forget. It was for a young woman named Meg, who was just 3 years old when I was in my first church in Beaton. Actually, I baptized her, and here I was now officiating at her wedding. She planned a wedding with dozens of people in a big church, in a big hall, and then, of course, came COVID. Rather than defer her plans, she decided she still wanted to get married. So she abandoned the church and the hall and the caterers, and we headed up to Bracebridge to a friend's cottage, where she was married on a dock under a canopy of bright red maple trees, with a small campfire going to keep the small number of guests warm. It was one of the most beautiful weddings I have ever done. And guess what she said afterwards when we were all toasting her or she and the groom with a glass of champagne? She thanked everybody for coming, and then she said, "And thank you, COVID, for giving me the wedding of my dreams that I would otherwise not have imagined." COVID was her boll weevil. Thankful people will always find a way to be thankful. And that's the point, isn't it? That's the point that Martin Seligman was getting at. Thankful people will always find a way to be thankful people. And it comes from developing an attitude of gratitude. So how do we do that? Just a couple of quick random thoughts today on developing gratitude. Number one, we develop an attitude of gratitude when we look at, reflect on, and experience beautiful things. When we feel in harmony with the created world around us. I've always believed that whoever came up with the idea of celebrating Thanksgiving on almost the exact weekend when the colors are at their brightest was brilliant. Imagine celebrating Thanksgiving on February the 1st. Beauty can create gratitude, and not even COVID can steal the beauty of this season. The psalmist wrote, "The earth is filled with the handiwork of God." If you're able to this Thanksgiving weekend, replace your 4 walls of brick and mortar with the 4 walls of sky, earth, trees, and water. Get outside and enjoy it. It's hard to feel grateful sitting at home in front of the TV, counting how many times you see Donald Trump take his mask on and off. On the other hand, the natural world fuels a sense of wonder, and wonder is a doorway to gratitude. I love what Henry David Thoreau once said, "I took a walk in the woods and came out taller than the trees." Nature is life-giving. Perhaps you've heard of a photographer named Louis Schwartzberg. He's devoted his life to time-lapse photography, and his images are stunning. He's captured flowers opening to full bloom, or storms gathering and then dissipating. But my favorite is a time-lapse image of a strawberry ripening. It starts off with just a little gray ball, and you see it grow, and then it's like God reached down with a paintbrush and paints it from bottom to top in red. It's incredible to see. Schwartzberg did a TED Talk about his photography and about gratitude. And he said in this TED Talk, the greatest compliment that he receives is when someone watches his photography and proclaims, "Oh my God." Are you shocked that I said that? I'll say it again. Oh my God. He said, how unfortunate that we equate that phrase with bad things, and certainly if we say it in the wrong context, we do. But he said, far from being an inappropriate phrase, it can be an expression of gratitude. He said, if you break it down, it's a positive and it's a powerful sentence. Oh means that something has caught your attention, that your senses have been heightened. My means that what you're looking at has stirred something, has claimed something inside of you. And God is a way of recognizing that there is a sacred connection in that moment, drawing us closer to the source of life. The human spirit, he said, needs these oh my God moments to restore and replenish it, to bring us into alignment again with the positive energies of life. So here's what I want you to do this weekend or this week. I want you to go out and find one of those moments. Go somewhere where there is color and beauty and goodness and purpose, and I want you to throw your arms open wide and exclaim in a loud voice at the top of your lungs, oh my God. And when someone looks at you and says, you shouldn't say that, say, it's okay, my minister said I could say it. I did it myself to try it out. I was pulling into the parking lot of the Zares on Saturday morning, the one up on Essa Road. And the sun was just coming up. And I don't know if you saw the sunrise that morning, but the sun was huge and it was bright and it was orange. It was gorgeous. And I looked at it and in a very quiet voice, I said, oh my God. And I blushed a little bit and lightning didn't come down to strike me. This weekend, experience something that makes you say, oh, that captures your attention and fires your imagination. Experiencing something that makes you say, my, that claims you, that opens up something inside of you. And experiencing something that makes you say, God, as you locate that experience within the sacred presence of the one who is our Creator. Think of it not as a swear word, but as a prayer of gratitude. And if you can't get out of your house, how about turning to your spouse and saying, oh my God, as you recognize how special that person is. You probably want to tell them, though, what you're doing, because otherwise they're going to think that there's something wrong with them. An attitude of gratitude is developed when we allow ourselves to be immersed in beauty around us and let it draw us back into the sustaining energy and peace of God. Secondly, we develop an attitude of gratitude when we keep a positive perspective on life. I read a great little article the other day. It was called, So, You Want to Be a Grouch? It was a how-to article written tongue-in-cheek to anyone who wants to be the best grouch they can be. It listed 4 surefire ways to make you a grouch. I wonder if there's any aspiring grouches out there today, because if you are, you want to listen carefully, because I'm going to teach you how to be the best grouch you can possibly be. Number 1, keep a record of every wrong done to you. Even better, write it down in a journal. The woman who got your order wrong at the drive-thru, write it down. The guy who cut you off in traffic, write it down. When it's written down, you can go back that if you ever start feeling positive, you can look back and see all the things that were done to you, and it will refuel that grouchiness. Number 2, use as many negative words as you can. Nothing keeps you in a grouchy frame of mind than adjectives like atrocious, irritating, horrible, and stupid. Number 3, go through life distracted. Always make sure you never have enough time for things. Constantly stare at your phone rather than the smiling faces of people passing you by. Being distracted helps fuel your grouchiness. And number 4, take every opportunity you can to complain. Complain, 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 because that keeps you focused on the things that aren't good, and that will help optimize your inner grouchiness. So to review, if you want to be an A1 grouch, keep a record of wrong, use negative language, always be distracted, and take every opportunity you can to complain. How many grouches did I just inspire? It's a pretty funny article because I could see myself in there, and I know at times I, probably like many people, can be a pretty good grouch. But no one's goal should be to be the best grouch they can be. And if it is, you might want to rethink that goal. Instead, our goal is to be the best person we can be. And that means keeping a positive perspective in life. Basically, it means doing exactly the opposite of what that article said. You want to keep an attitude of gratitude? Here's what you do. Keep a journal of all the good things that happened to you. The person who wished you a good day in the drive-thru. The person who let you into traffic. Write that stuff down. Actually, do you know that journaling is the most effective way of staying in a place of gratitude? Do you know why? Because studies have shown that negative experiences are like Velcro. They stick to our memories. You tend not to forget bad things that happened to you. On the other hand, positive memories or experiences are like Teflon. They tend to just wash off us. We experience them, enjoy them, and then we forget about them. Have you ever had an argument with a significant other? It's easy, isn't it, to dredge up all the bad stuff because that's the stuff that's stuck like Velcro that you remember. It's harder to think of the good stuff. But I'll bet there's much more good stuff than there is negative stuff. You just can't remember it. Keeping a gratitude journal allows you to stay in that more positive place of remembering those good things. What else? Use positive words instead of negative words. That's a no-brainer. The words that we use train our thoughts, and positive words lead to positive thoughts, which lead to positive actions. Thank you. I appreciate you. Your pumpkin pie is not the worst that I've ever tasted. Positive words. What else? If you want to be a grouch, you stay distracted. So if you want to be positive, you stay engaged. Give yourself time that you need for the things that you like. Put down the phone now and again and look at those smiling faces. Be fully engaged. And finally, and most importantly, if you want to be a grouch, complain. Turn that around. If you want to be positive, give up the need to complain and instead try to appreciate. Maya Angelou was truly one of the great voices of the 20th century. She was a writer and a poet and a philosopher, and also a voice of justice, particularly for Black Americans. She's written some beautiful, beautiful things. When asked who was the biggest influence in her life, she would always say her grandmother, and she would tell this story. She said her grandmother owned a store in Arkansas, and so often the people who came in that store loved to complain. And whenever they would come in, and Maya was in the store, her grandmother would invite her to listen to what they were saying. Maya said her grandmother would then bait the customers by asking questions such as, "How are you doing today, Brother Thomas?" And then complaining would gush forth from Brother Thomas about all the things that were wrong. The weather was terrible. There was too much plowing to do, and on and on. And it wasn't just Brother Thomas. Lots of people came in the store with those kind of complaints and other ones. Maya Angelou said that every so often, when that person would leave the store, her grandmother would invite her to come over, stand in front of her. Her grandmother would lean down, put her hands on Maya's shoulders, and look at her right in the face. And she would say to her, "Do you hear all that complaining? Maya, think about this. There are people who went to bed in the world last night, rich and poor, black and white. They never woke up again. All those folks would give anything for just 5 minutes of the weather that we're having, or 10 minutes of that awful plowing that Brother Thomas was complaining about." "Maya, watch yourself about complaining," she would say. "Your life isn't a drudge or a nuisance. It's not something to give that's meant to annoy you. It's an adventure, a wonder, a gift. It should be enjoyed, and it should be lived with gratitude. And if you don't like a thing, don't complain about it. Just try and change it." And Maya Angelou said that phrase stuck with her all through her life. If you don't like something, don't complain about it. Just try to change it. And she did. Jesus healed 10 lepers one day and sent them on their way. Of the 10, only one came back and said, "Thank you." Jesus was quick to praise him. He was equally quick to criticize the other 9 who simply went on their way. Why? Because Jesus knew what Martin Seligman knew, what Maya Angelou's grandmother knew, what those old Etruscan priests knew, what the photographer Louis Schwartzberg knew, what my friend Meg knew on her dock in Bracebridge. That there is power in gratitude. There's energy in gratitude. There is healing in gratitude. There is peace in gratitude. Even when things don't work out the way you expected, even during a Thanksgiving day that may be very different than you've ever had before, if you can still find a reason to say thank you, you have elevated your spirit, you have increased your energy, and you have connected again with the wonderful, creative, imaginative, colorful force of life that we call God. Thou hast given so much to me. Give me one more thing, a thankful heart. Not thankful when it pleases me, as if thy blessings had spare days, but such a heart whose pulse may be thy praise. Amen.